All right, we're good. And we're on.
And we're on, not like stream starting soon on, right?
Nope, we are on right now. We're on Twitch and on Facebook and on YouTube. And there's Kay Swiftly. How's it going?
Hi, Kay.
Sorry, I like literally just ran in the house.
Oh, you look cute. You got flower in your hair and stuff.
My favorite flowers in my yard just started blooming, and I couldn't resist the temptation to just grab one on my way in. So
hi, Anansi.
Hey y'all.
I feel like everybody's all put together and stuff. I should like get out of this blanket.
I have not put together.
I have my blanket here. It's just not on yet.
Put together. Wait, why does Andre looks put together? I don't know what's going on there.
Right, Andre got
what's going on? You look like you just came from the club.
I know.
No, it's first of all, I wear my jacket indoors because it's bloody cold. Well, the thing is, when we put the girls to bed, we got to make sure that their room is like at a decent temperature. Otherwise, they sweat. But then the problem is where I am in the house, it makes me cold as hell.
True. No, I understand.
Yeah. Me too.
Actually, that's why I'm here. Put it up.
Are we live already, Andre, or no?
Oh, we are live.
Oh.
Okay. You heard nothing.
All right.
No, it's all good.
Yeah, there was like no transition. We just went 0 to 100 real quick.
And we got 550 subs real quick too.
Holy smokes! So we just who made all them subs? Hang on, it looks like Colt Loft the Light. Thank you so much for the subs. Gifted a tier 1 sub to
Keeper of the Light. What's up?
Hi,
Colt
Keeper of
Loft
the Light.
Came through on the big pogs. What's up? Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Yeah,
I'm
and we haven't even.
I'm still getting over the fact that that their name is Keeper of the Light of the Light.
That's what that stands for? Oh, okay, now I understand.
Yeah, Keeper of the Light. Of the light. But yeah, wow, we haven't even depressed everybody into this channel because we're about to hit some pretty heavy topics in a minute.
Right. True.
So
jokes.
Before we get started, I guess it's probably a good time to do a vibe check. How's everyone doing tonight?
I'm good. How are y'all?
That sounded not convincing at all.
Yeah, it was. But I just prefer to. I prefer to say it.
Be stoic and power your way through it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Everything's okay when it's not.
I'm about to move soon in a month, trying to figure out how I'm gonna live in Chicago and stuff like that. But
moving to China. Damn.
Oh, you know what? You know who I talked to? I listened to your podcast, your episode 2, your podcast, and then I contacted Sumarun Joshua. Because I want to go to Cuba. So
I also want to
if that thing goes through, I'm going to Cuba.
Oh wow! So you're gonna go to the brigade too, eh?
Absolutely.
Oh damn, that's wicked.
Now y'all's podcast getting me in these like connections. I was like, wow. Radicalizing in Cuba.
I was gonna say, look at us radicalizing people going to Cuba. I'm here for it.
Josh was your favorite comrade.
I know.
Josh is dope as fuck.
No, he's really cool. He's from Jacksonville too. I didn't know he's from Florida.
Yeah, he's from Florida.
That's why I want to meet him, because I do work with a Gullah Geechee community down in just north of Jacksonville.
Yeah, he's an organizer down there. He's currently a president at Charleston College. So yeah, dope.
Josh and Slank are my favorite. All shade to Jamel and Rennie.
Blank is literally the funniest on Twitter, bro.
No shade to Rennie, but all of the shade and all of the smoke to Jamel right now. So
Jamel said he hates Minnesota, hates Prince, hates K.
Speak of the devil. He can answer for this sins himself.
I know they talking shit.
Quickly, you sound a little low.
Hold on.
I'm a little bit low. Okay, hold on. Let me adjust levels.
What is my volume like? I just flipped my mic on real quick. I have no idea what's going on with it.
You're fine.
You sound good. Do I sound okay now?
Oh, he's
yeah,
really good now.
You're good.
Okay.
Jamel seems to hate everything. Yeah, that's pretty accurate, actually.
Jamel's
Who
just
said
a
that?
whole ass
Who said that
Jamel,
shit?
Jamel hates
Friends.
nature. Jamel hates
Muffin
people.
Man, maybe.
We
Yeah.
currently
I never-
working on some writing too.
Nah, if y'all see the Muffin Man, tell him I'm coming for his ass.
Oh my
He's gonna
God.
fight literally every single urban legend, animal. He's
I want
gonna
to see
jump in
Jamel fight a
lava.
shark. That's what I want to see Jamel fight.
Where my damn memory cards at? This is racism at its finest. I tell you what. Hold on.
Q, they're saying you're quiet too.
Oh, I'm quiet too.
Who
You
is
sound
they?
fine to me.
Yeah, you sound.
Corodactyl. People in the
Okay,
chat.
I can raise my levels, but I don't know if you really want me to. Hang on. How's now?
Hold on. I'll be right back.
Okay.
All right.
I mean, yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
I think any louder is going to be misogynoir. So
I was speaking over and above all of the women on the panel. Damn.
So they got a Fred Hampton movie now.
Yeah,
I'm
that shit could
down.
be garbage.
Yeah, man.
And it's not necessarily because I don't think the dude
Oh,
can.
Mo-
Nah, fuck them
Mozart-
UK motherfuckers. Nah, let me stop.
wait. Mozart 24 subscribed with Twitch Prime. So shout out to Mozart for that.
Wow.
Oh wait,
shout
we're
out
live
to
right
you,
now.
Mozart.
Oh shit! Why
Yeah,
y'all
we
don't
live
tell me?
live.
Damn, I'm over
we
here
did say nine.
slandering UK blacks. Now they're gonna come for me.
Yeah, they are.
So now that we're all here, Q, do you want to introduce the panel?
Yep. So the panel with Rennie, Nina, Jamel, Anansi, and Kay Swiftly, we had a conversation, each of us online, and we were a bit concerned about the fact that whenever Black Death shows up in the news or as a thing to rally behind, the technology behind it, oftentimes people feel that they need to bear witness to Black Death in order to empathize with it, to get the word out, to raise awareness, or whatever slogan of the day is. What ends up happening, though, is the means by which Black Death is broadcast, disseminated, etc., ends up reifying and creating like a consumptive process where people feel the need to actually like consume Black Death to feel empathetic towards it. And what we've just, at least the impression that I got and what I've been definitely concerned with is, why do you have to see Black Death occur in the graphic way that it does in order to feel a connection to it? And there's no shortage of scholarship. There's no shortage of information, of readings, of people that have come before us that have explained like the way that we consume Black Death is itself a concretization of white supremacy. So that's what we wanted to talk about tonight. Is there anything I missed, or is there anything that I stepped over?
No, that's perfect.
No, but I would like to say that it's not only like the need to witness these deaths and to see these graphic images, and it's the entitlement to do so, the entitlement to watch it and circulate it, that I think is a big part of the conversation that needs to be had too.
Yeah, especially
Yeah.
when we talk about how traumatizing it is, and then people just get like refused to like. I don't understand why, even if you think it's necessary, how when someone says, "Hey, I don't want you circulating that. That's really traumatic for Black people." Why people actually argue against that? Like, if you like really understand that, there's like they even like demand further. They're like push past it. They're like, no, fuck your like sense of safety. I need to see this. I need to see it again. It's
I
like,
had a
wow.
white liberal tell me that once, and he was just like, "I need to see it." Like it was almost like he was getting off. Like I'm like, bro, I'm actually concerned. He's like, "I need to see it."
Honestly, it kind of is like that though. Like, why? Like, this necessity goes beyond just like, I want to see it. It's like, I need to. And I don't know. That's weird. It's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like there's no regard for the people's families. Like these are people. This is not just some product that exists for your consumption, some empty thing. Like these are people. They had people who had lives, who had loved ones, who have surviving loved ones and families who also are being exposed to these things, and are seeing their loved ones reduced to these videos. And there's no consideration whatsoever for whether or not these people's family want these videos out there like that, want them being circulated to any and everyone for their own consumption and their own ends. And when you point that out, people try to like make it seem like there's this greater good or whatever that trumps the impact on the people who this is harming. And it's like, what is this greater good? Because as Q said, there's so many other ways we can discuss Black people being killed. We can discuss police murders. We can discuss this violence that doesn't involve this murder porn culture that's being fostered around it.
No, yeah, I would say that, like, I don't know. Earlier, Kelly told me about how, like, people are arguing that you need to see the death to be radicalized. And my thing is, like, I said a lot of things about that, but one of the first things, one thing that popped in my head right now as you were speaking, Nina, is the fact that, like, this death is circulated by all types of people from all types of political perspectives. And, like the idea that this is uniquely radicalizing, even if you believe that, like, liberals or, like, left or, like, white people who are, like, what is it? I don't know, friendly towards this kind of thing are being, like, enraged by this. There's also an entire cadre of people that are using this to make a meme out of it. Like, I'll never forget when the first time I went on Twitter, maybe like the third day I was on Twitter or something like that, I saw a person, a Twitter account that was called Days Since George Floyd Has Been Sober. Literally, it was a bot that was like counting every day since George Floyd has been sober. They literally, since his death, to make fun of his death. And y'all gonna sit here and tell me that, like, just because someone dies, it's radical. Like, this country has killed Black people this world has killed Black people for centuries. They've been perfectly inured towards Black death, and it's a question of how you interpret that relationship, not a question just seeing it is just gonna, like, revolutionarily change everything for you. Like, people know Black people are dying, they accept it to be true, and they think it's necessary. It's like, what are y'all doing?
Right.
And I think to the subject of one of the things that we really wanted to speak of is one, like, if we historicize this, this is something particularly, like, there is on some level there's something gendered about Black death, right? In the sense of we rarely see Black women killed on camera in the past, and it does happen, right? But it's something that we don't see as often, and not even just for Black women, but for anyone else. I joke, like, it's funny when people will say, you know, hey, there's more in aggregate, there's more white men who get killed by the police than Black men. It's like, okay, that's true. And of course, if we standardize those rates, proportionally, Black men are getting killed at rates both armed and unarmed, you know, that are not requisite with the population size. But it's like, how is it that, like, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've only seen ever, and I was like one video ever of a white person being killed on video once ever.
One time.
And if we're talking just like based on the numbers, right? If 1,000 more white men are killed every single year than Black men, right? Then just based on that, an absolute number game, then there should be the dissemination of videos of a person being killed should be there. We should just see more white men being valorized by the injustices of police and brutality. But it seems to be that only Black male death gets this attention.
Yeah,
absolutely. Hi, Silver. Thanks for the raid. Silver raided with a party of 7, and also hi, Sim. Thanks for following. But yeah, Jamel, absolutely. What you were saying is 100% true, because, like you said, for people, especially whites or, you know, liberals or, you know, Candace Owens, who loves that.
Hey, can we go on record and just say fuck Candace Owens? Can we go on record?
Yeah, I also put that
absolutely
on a transcript. Put that in.
I want that fuck
Candace Owens.
But people who love to pretend that you know, police violence and police murders are not racially motivated, and, you know, they're always like, oh, well, white people get killed by police too, then, like, yeah, that begs the question that Jamel just posed, like, why is that never what we see in footage? Why do we never see white men, white women, anyone else but Black men being killed on camera, and then having footage of their murders circulated in the ways that we see these videos, like George Floyd's murder and Eric Garner and Philando Castile, like
Stephon Clark as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Go ahead. Sorry.
and that video was particularly horrifying, and I can't believe that it was allowed to be disseminated the way that it was.
Yeah, that's actually another point I wanted to like. I always wonder. So we have to understand, like, one, they're like, you know, your blue check, your bloggers, your pundits who are sharing these things, like, especially like I always call it trauma porn Sean King, who sees some shit
Right.
and immediately you have to see this. Like, he's always like it's so fucking weird. Like, I know he's not a black man the way he reacts to Black death. You can quote me on that. I don't know that everyone else shares that opinion on this podcast. So these opinions are my own. And but
It's like your opinions on
white man
Minnesota.
Sean King, when he sees Black death, he loses his fucking shit. My cat is wilding out, bro. Why do cats do this?
Welcome to that world.
They just get a burst of energy like they're doing.
What
meth
did you
on the
think was
side
going to
or
happen when
something.
you got a cat? Like people don't make those memes on the internet about cats wilding the hell out for no reason. Like,
Yeah,
cats
it's irrational. Like, I need to find out who the
and-
meth dealer to my cat is, because
And Kay and her cat prisons is just excited to have somebody
Okay.
else aligned with her and her cat oppression.
No, listen,
Like,
Athena is down here right now. She murdered my spider gods last night.
I'm
I
crying.
think it's bad juju. Okay, they've been holding vigil in my corner, like 6 feet away from me for months, and Athena murdered them in cold blood last night.
Oh
And somehow
wow!
she still gets to be down here. She's right here.
Ask her if she wants to fight me next.
Do you
Free
want to
Athena.
fight? Do you want
Of course,
to fight
of
Jamel
course he
next?
said
She will
that.
fight you
Of
just
course
for
he
talking
said
shit about me all
Just
the time.
waiting to fight. Literally every animal.
You know, hey, look, me versus the animal kingdom. But to the point. Shit. What was I saying? There's a. I actually absolutely did lose my train of thought. Derailed.
I'm sorry.
Like an A train.
Cool. Let me pick up.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I totally agree as it pertains to how these videos are disseminated. And like you said, Jamil, essentially, if within our culture we're starting to read the representation of death as a privilege, right? Then the apex of privilege, which would be white men, should logically have the
We
most
should be having protests for white men every fucking day.
exactly. So the fact that you do not see this, for real,
That's true,
so
bro.
the
That's
fact that you do not see these videos should really hold in question this assumptive logic of privilege through death and representation. In 1945, Richard Wright's autobiography, Black Boy, he talks about how you do not have to see a lynching to see its effects, right? He goes on to say that he had been so conditioned to the existence of lynchings that it felt as if he had been a victim of 1,000. This spectrality of lynch videos, this dissemination intersecting with our modern technology, the modern technology of 24-hour cable news, the technology of video cameras, the technology of phones, the fact that you can literally see these lynching videos on and on again speaks to a particular spectrality and fetishization. In David Marriott's book on Black men, he tells a story of a lynching where they lynched this man, they burned him, they castrated him, they ripped him apart, and one of the white men came up to the black man who had been mutilated and lynched and said that he needed to go get his camera because it doesn't look human, does it? So part of the spectrality of lynching is reducing the black male body to a non-human. And part of reducing that body to a non-human is sort of like a social phenomenon where white people can now tell themselves that these people are human anyway, therefore their deaths are warranted. And I had a piece that came out recently, and I talked about how this representation of death is really representation of death. It keeps on presenting itself.
Bars.
So, yeah. So even in Photograph and Lynching from David Marriott, he says the photograph represents the climax of an unfolding drama. More than an aid to memory, Though it is that too, the photograph is part of a process, another form of a racist slur, which can travel through time to do its own work, right? So these technologies allow lynching practices and videos to travel through time. They're always with us. So it always goes back to that idea that you literally do not have to see a lynching video to be rendered by its effects.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I literally have never. I don't think I've ever watched one of these videos from the very beginning. Like since like Trayvon Martin in high school, like I literally have never watched one on purpose because I just didn't want to like feel that kind of sense of like literally like existential like connection to what's going on to this person, right?
Right.
But I mean, it's 100% true that just every time there's a story, every time there's a new name to add to this kind of like iconography of like Black people dying, let's like mobilize a protest around them. It's a draining type of feeling. It's a feeling of like, it's draining because there's something you said, there's one thing where like the actual lynchers are like all in communion about like killing this person and mutilating them. It's also another thing to me about the ways that like our so-called like liberal allies and like white leftists or whoever, like who claim to be on our side. So they're not even like the people who would like do that, like necessarily be in the lynching like festival, ideally in my mind, right? But they'll like
be eating the Kool-Aid afterwards, right?
Right. They're not going to be in the fair, right? But like they're still the ones who like, I guess they get off on the tragedy of it and they like recognizing it as a tragedy. So
like
there's
digital cannibalism.
Like it's something like that. Like they literally just like we're talking about like how they need like a level of like moral authority.
Absolutely.
And like watching this video confirms the moral authority.
But it doesn't actually even create. It doesn't even create any kind of moral authority. There was a and there's a like several studies and books that shows that like the exposure to the material doesn't actually create any more empathy for the subjects of the material. We like to believe that being exposed to lynching imagery is going to cause people to, just the same way that we believe that viewing audiences being exposed to civil rights activists having dogs sicked on them and hoses turned on them turned America's conscience overnight, and that's not what happened. Keep in mind, like it was like 2/3 of Americans were antipathetic against Dr. Martin Luther King's civil rights marches. There's a book called The Many Faces of Judge Lynch that actually goes through like from the 1700s all the way through the contemporary times, and how lynching was featured as a technology in the not just like the subjugation of Black people, but the propagation of memes, the propagation of ideas about Black criminality and Black pathology. In one of the chapters called Threadbare Lies, they talk about like how many articles and how much journalism was focused on lynching, the phenomenon of lynching, and on the lynched person, the lynched body. And it says throughout the 1880s, the Times lynching articles thought almost a quarter of lynching incidents had community support, but in the 1990s, the Times very rarely found community support sufficient to make lynching explicable. They found community support worthy of comment and only 5% of incidents reported. In the 1880s, they thought the person lynched was certainly guilty 52% of the time. In the 1890s, the lynched person seemed guilty only 21% of the time. But it also says more journalistic attention for racial lynchings did not mean that ordinary white people had changed their minds on the question of racial violence. Most whites, Northern and Southern, simply ignored the anti-lynching proponents, continuing to argue that a Black propensity to rape justified lynching as though the things that were said or written meant nothing. In 1916, one Georgia judge advised that the best way to stop lynchings is to stop the crimes that provoke the lynchings. Now, how does that sound any different than people saying that the best way to stop anti-Black violence is to stop Black people from committing the crimes? What about Black on Black violence?
Stop the criminals from committing crime.
Now, on that moment, stay with me here. Hold on, if you don't mind, if I jump in really quickly, since we are there. A little while ago, speaking of lynching, so I just wanted, and this may segue into what was just about to being said, but we have to think about lynching it's a public spectacle, right? It's like a public punishment for some unjust crime, usually just like you've upset white people. And like quite literally, I had this list here when I was looking at this National Lynching Archive of all the various reasons that Black men and women were on record for being lynched for. And like, I'll just name some of these, and they're just like, here's one: being offensive to a white girl, colonizing Negroes, disputed with men, frightened woman, living with white women, offended white man, race hatred. Now, imagine being lynched for race hatred during a time when you're not even given full citizenship by the state. Being the son of a murderer.
Being the son of a murderer.
The son of a murderer. Testifying, threatening to give evidence, bad character, acted suspiciously, mother of arsonist. So basically, black people, and I could keep going on, like unwise remarks, all these very just ridiculous, like minutia reasons. Basically, black people were lynched for any fucking reason.
Yep.
Right. And not only just that person in that person, but anyone connected to him. Basically, like you can understand how powerful of a tool this was in trying to, basically keep people quiet and docile. You know.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see how those justifications haven't really changed, because what was the excuse given for George Zimmerman killing Trayvon Martin? You know, it was, and he was wearing a hoodie and he was walking around at night and he was acting suspiciously. And so like white people have, justified and weaponized power to commit these extrajudicial murders of black people all throughout history, and it hasn't really changed. And because we know it's happened all throughout history, like all of us have said, what is seeing it on video supposed to change? And it's this idea of appealing to their humanity or white guilt or whatever. But white people brought their children to lynchings. Yep. They showed up as a family and made it an event, a fair. Mm-hmm. Like, so if seeing black people killed was supposed to convince them of our humanity, if seeing us being murdered and lynched was supposed to change their minds, there's no way they would have gone on lynching black folk for as long as they did all throughout history. So obviously there's no opposition to people seeing us being murdered.
And I think that that's like a really important point to like touch upon two things. One, like we can't speak about lynching in the past tense because we're still being lynched today.
Right.
Two, I've compiled a list of some common arguments that are used in favor of this. And if any of them evoke any emotions, like, and promote discussion, like, I think that would be a really welcome thing to do. These videos need to be shown so that people know the truth, in my opinion. They should not be glorified or presented in any other context than this is the truth of what happened. We need to see it. I think white people are obligated to watch how differently they are treated by police. The world needs to see this to get fucking angry. I'm sorry, but this is something that needs to be seen. It humanizes the people that are killed in a way we can't just ignore. It is traumatic. It is
dead
awful.
Body on the ground.
It's likely triggering for many people that have gone through similar shit, but it needs to be seen by those who haven't. Those who are traumatized can leave temporarily if they need, but this is history and it will be rewritten by bad actors if we don't keep hammering the truth.
Rewritten by bad actors.
So hold on, let's say it. So show of hands on this panel. How many of you guys are aware that black people used to be lynched over the last 150 years? Now, like, what did we just say? Like, that shit hasn't stopped. Not only that, but like, it's concurrent with the police state. It's concurrent with the carceral state, right? Like,
and so it kind of goes back to like the original question is like, when you say people need to see it, who are these people? And what is being achieved by them seeing it?
They mean white people. I think that we can all clearly say that they mean white people need to see this, or people.
Yeah. Obviously, but that's what I'm saying. Like when people use white, love to use the phrase people, and they mean white, and they mean myself, and like if you're talking about yourself as a white person, to say myself, you don't have to say people. And if you feel like you need to see this. Why do you need to see this? What do you gain from seeing this? How does it serve the rest of the world for you to see this? What is this need fueling?
I think it's interesting the point you just made, because as it pertains to white people, honestly, I think we need to stop pretending that white people are still out in the streets protesting because of Black death. A
Right.
lot of it is intersects with the economic issues that's happening due to the global pandemic.
Mhm.
Curry brought up a brilliant point about how these movements were, this movement in particular around George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, how it was particularly like seen as like something so, you know, overwhelmingly like big because more white liberals were involved. And it begs the question, what does it mean? What does it mean for a movement, for Black Lives, a movement that is geared towards telling folk that Black Lives matter when it's conditioned on the fact that white people show up? What happens in 5 years when policies are put in and white people start to change their mind about what they said 5 years ago, right? If your entire movement is predicated on how many white people show up, then what happens when they stop showing up? What happens when they start rolling those things back? What happens when they start disagreeing about the politics that you have? You know?
Yeah. Because I was gonna say that like one of the weird things about that kind of idea that we need, not one, that we need them, and two, that they need to see it or that they want to see it as white people because they're ignorant, is like, to me, white people are not ignorant about the fact that Black people suffer. It's a question of how they justify it. And I find that if someone is watching, so let's say you found about George Floyd, you watched a video, you shared the video, you like watched the discussion around the video, probably watch it again, then just other video comes out with additional information after the whole protests have been going on, you watch it again. To me, there's a particular type of way in which this repetitious watching is like, you're watching it so that you can remind yourself, so like you can bring the dissonance that you have back, so you can remind yourself of why you should keep fighting for it. Because when you go back to like your homeostasis, when things are normal, you're still going to take Black death for granted in a little way.
Yeah.
If your radicalization is contingent upon how many times you see Black people die, you're not radicalizing. You're just kind of like seeing the spectacle and then like doubling back on, well, you know, some people deserve it. Maybe not George Floyd, maybe not Breonna Taylor, maybe not XYZ, but like some people do deserve it. And you're not actually pushing yourself in a structural
and Sim
direction.
just made a really good point in the chat where she said, she quoted MLK and said that they march against the extremities of the killings, but not for the equality. And that's like an important point to me in this conversation, because when you see these videos and the way people respond to it, it's always like, oh, that was too far. That was extreme.
Yeah.
Oh, they should.
These conservatives love jumping in on that. Like, this one is actually wrong.
Again, like the idea that like you as a white person watching this video are like the moral authority on whether or not George Floyd's murder was unjust or not. Like, we have been telling you that we are being unjustly murdered, extrajudiciously murdered by both the state and by people for actual centuries. So like, why is it that and I understand why actually, but like, once again, this idea of like that you deserve the right to like with your white eyes make the judgment call on whether or not we deserve to die.
Yeah,
exactly. And I was gonna say so we have the dehumanizing aspect of it, the element of it, the part that reduces Black people to dead bodies, the part that creates a spectacle for white people. And, you know, then you have the aspect where it empowers whites to play judge and jury over which Black deaths are justified, which ones are too far, which ones are too extreme, which ones are actually racist, where they feel like they need to see the video so they can be like, do I feel like that was excessive force? Do I feel like that Black person shouldn't have been killed? Do I feel like they went too far this time? And like Kay said, who are you to make those judgment calls? So that goes back to the entitlement issue. It's an issue of entitlement for you to feel entitled to see someone's murder this way, to see someone's loved ones tortured and murdered in this way, and then it's entitled for you to feel like you get to decide whether or not the circumstances are justified.
And then
it moves from a see for myself to a judge for myself. You know, I want to. It's not just I want to see for myself what happened and be able to force people to develop empathy, but I want to judge for myself whether this is a death that's worthy of empathy or not. And I think that's kind of what it comes down to, and it's something that people don't really want to admit, especially since we've seen so many cases where there are, for example, with the killing of Philando Castile, people still argue that even though he was cognizant of the fact that he was armed, and he informed the officer that he was armed. He says, I'm reaching for my wallet right now, but I'm just letting you know that I carry a gun. And as he reached for it, he was killed. And there were still people who were saying that, well, he shouldn't have reached for anything, right? And
Kill light shouldn't have been out, shit like that. Like,
It almost doesn't matter what reasons you come up with. The body cam footage for the police officers when they were beginning the arrest, detainment, and then summary execution of George Floyd. People were saying, well, he was coked out of his mind, or that he was definitely on something. Look at his face, and it's like, so you don't really care what the circumstances were, because as far as I understand, there's no such thing as a summary execution or summary death penalty for somebody that's under arrest, no matter what condition they're in.
Right.
What you're looking for is a reason to find justified or unjustified in your imagination, because you believe that your imagination delineates the limits of our lives, that you get to decide whether we live or die.
It's like when they're like, oh, they shouldn't have been resisting. And I'm like, last time I checked, you weren't allowed to murder people for resisting arrest. I don't even know what this argument is.
I've seen white people punch cops on video, bro. Like,
I've seen there was a white guy who killed several people and then went shacked up in his house, barricaded in his house for hours, stand down, and then came out butt ass naked. The police never fired a bullet.
I shouldn't laugh. That's not fucking funny.
Yeah,
it's
why people have to be like Rambo?
Dylan Roof they took Dylan Roof to eat fucking fast food. Yeah, like get
Burger King.
Same thing. What about the young man? The Parkland shooting. The Parkland shooting, right? They took him safely too, right? Or did he kill himself?
Who?
The Parkland shooting in Florida.
I don't know.
Is it Parkland?
White people.
Actually, I know. Wait.
I feel like he got, and I remember a sheriff ran away or some shit. Like, all of a sudden you're scared of white boys, but you're not scared of black. Okay, And
that's the thing that's really ridiculous. Is like these people come up out of nowhere, right? Like, and they shoot like 30 people, kill 30 people. They walk out of a situation, and a police officer. So like we're talking about police in the court, they will defer to. There will be like a thing called like deference, and they'll be like, we defer to the police officer's expertise in the situation. Like in like Terry v. Ohio, they were like for stop and frisk, when they justified stop and frisk, they were like, oh, cops have like years of experience. They should be able to know who's suspicious, not suspicious. So like George Floyd, he must be on something, so therefore we get to kill him. Dylan Roof, he shot 30 people. You don't feel any danger? You don't feel any danger? Like he could just pop you right now, turn it around. Like no, let's give him McDonald's.
Well, he killed black people.
And this ultimately comes down to the fact that like black people are seen as criminal, whereas like white people are seen as doing criminal acts that are a result of mental illness, they're given
they get all the nuance.
They get all the nuance, all the grace. Like it's not really, they didn't mean to do it. They feel remorse. Like this was just something wrong. Like
they were a good kid. There was a bright kid with a bright future. Like, they have all these different like humanizing aspects to them.
No, y'all.
Look at how many white kids get off for like literal rape. Like they'll be like fully guilty, and they'll be like, this young man has a whole life ahead of him. 6 months probation. You know what I'm saying? Like
I was gonna say the white that Nina shared with that one white teacher who was like, she's so pretty.
Oh yeah.
So I was like, that is probably the most disgusting thing I've ever heard. Like,
and the fact that a lot of white teachers rape boys in their classroom, they get off scot-free.
Right.
Yeah. That's what Anansi when I was talking about when I went over the fucking Mary Kay Letourneau story, and then I touched on the fact that there was also that Debbie LaFavor, whatever her name was, that everybody was like she was an icy blonde beauty. It would have been a dream come true for the boy that she sexually assaulted. Like just all these different things that like basically made it seem like it was justifiable that she was out here raping children. But like bringing it back to like the extrajudicial killings of Black people and these lynching videos, Anansi, you mentioned that you had never watched one of them. I actively tried to avoid them. But then you have things like autoplay features on Facebook and Twitter where you're just scrolling, minding your own damn business, and suddenly a video of a Black person being killed is playing in your fucking feed. And it's like you can't help but catch bits and pieces. Like you scroll past it as fast as you can, but it's just like things like that being allowed to be circulated in a way where you can just traumatize people and expose them to this content non-consensually. Like I have no interest whatsoever in seeing this. I watched the video of Stephen Clark, and I didn't watch it on purpose, knowing it was a video of his murder, because I watched it on a fucking news site, and I just knew the video was going to cut off before they started dumping rounds into this fucking young black man while he was laying on the fucking ground. And of course it did not. And it's just like, you have to talk about like the fucking role that media plays in circulating these videos and making them able to be consumed in these ways and forcing them on you in certain ways. Like I would have never imagined that a fucking major news station would do that.
So I have a question. I want to add on to this, and I have a question that I want to post to the group about this. So what do you say to people who say news is going to circulate these videos regardless? So like we have a responsibility to cover this responsibly, to like share
that's just disassociating yourself.
I would just ask them, why don't they do this with everybody else who dies?
Yeah, I mean, I would remind them that literally lynching is an aid to memory that travels through time. That's exactly what it is. And the dissemination of these videos via the technologies of social media, the technology of 24-hour cable news, truly treat these lynching videos within a market of consumption. Like, and I mean, David Marriott calls it a ritual, right? He says it's an appetite for documentation. So like this devouring by the eye, as if only a camera can bring the spectator close enough for the eye to be embedded in flesh. And of course, the camera plays its part in sustaining that appetite, prolonging the scene it is supposed to record. So it's like, if we're thinking about the question being posed, well, don't people need to see this? Again, I would just ask, do you need to see a lynching to be rendered the effects of the lynching? And how are we? What are we learning? We know these things exist, right?
Yeah.
They're constantly being disseminated. We know these things exist.
I was going to say that like Andre was like had a good point earlier where he talked about people wanting to be the judge of these situations, and I realized that like another example of why radicalization fails here is like if you were trying to articulate the nuances of the situation of why someone deserves to die or not die, which is to say, if you're trying to like look at George Floyd's death and like use a situation to prove either his innocence or his guilt, to be honest. You could be the like good meaning liberal that argues, oh, he was just doing nothing wrong. You've already failed to you've missed the point because you're as a spectacle, you're individuating and you're moralizing the situation. Like the policing as a system is meant to kill in the first place. Everybody from George Floyd to Trayvon Martin to like us are in proximity to that hardened criminal image at all times. It's not like we're innocent and then we get killed on accident. It's like, nah, we're guilty and we happen to all be around, but like at any, like, it's basically everything's emanating from that direct form of violence. So when you're just sitting here talking about, oh, it's gratuitous, it's meaningless, and it shouldn't happen no matter what the person did, which is why it's also an issue where like, I feel you never see a police killing of a person who's actually committed a crime is another thing. Like if a person like went did like armed robbery, it's just like, well, that's police business, and that's an issue because we need to be moving towards that structural challenge towards police business. Police business is violence, and it's violence against Black people.
Yeah. Let me ask you.
Sour Cookie said, "What annoys me is I've blocked so many people, but somehow videos still find their way to me. People are really out here sharing them like trading cards."
Bro. It's like I trade you my George Floyd for you, Stephon Clark type shit. Like it's really wild.
And it's like, and that goes back to what I was saying about like the role that, you know, media, like news companies and like the like social media plays in like helping facilitate that and in helping force that on people and expose people to these things that so many of us do not want to see and that no one needs to see, because they quite frankly should not be allowed to be posted online the way they are. The same way they found a way to filter out child pornography on most of these sites, they should have found a way to keep snuff films from circulating on Facebook and Twitter.
But they are, except for our bodies. Like they are, like snuff films are not allowed on YouTube, but George Floyd's body all over YouTube. It makes no fucking sense. Like their policies is selectively applied.
Because like Kay said, they have this fucking weird ass, oh, well, it's something we need to, it's important. It's part of history. It's part of, you know, these movements. It needs to be covered responsibly, but responsibly with covering it would be not letting those videos be shown.
Yeah. And I wanted to circle back on Anansi's point. And it's this notion of like why do they need to even find, like, I need to see the video so that I can be the one to justify, like I can decide, right? If this is like, did they go too far? And it's like, bro, like if we just look at this, an overwhelming amount of just evidence available that tells us the police state is like fundamentally corrupt. Like I was just looking at some data points. I think it's since since 89, there have been 1,900 individuals exonerated as groups, and cases where these defendants were falsely convicted of crimes as a result of a large-scale pattern of corrupt police perjury and corruption. So, like, and the majority of these are, you guessed it, Black people, right? Like this happened in LA, this happened in Chicago, NYPD. Constant cases where we see the police consistently acting with impunity beyond the scope of their, of their job, just to lock Black people up. What's his motherfucker's name? Liam Neeson. Do you guys remember when he just said, like, I just wanted to go out and kill a random Black man? Like that type of shit was no one.
Sorry, real quick, before you hop on that point, just real quick, just want to point out, and I know that I hate to knock you off the point, but just real quick, Lumfish just gifted a bunch of tier subs. Kuma wants to subscribe with Twitch Prime. Keep Rub the Light just dropped some gift subs out here, and then Lumfish gave another.
We got level 2 hype train going.
We're on the second level hype train. Sorry about that, but yeah, you were saying Liam Neeson.
Yeah, Liam Neeson was on record, and this just speaks to the disposability of Black males. It speaks to just like how normalized Black death is, and like he literally says, and I don't know if someone can link a video to the audio, but he basically said, I think it was like what some was like his daughter was raped or something like that. His friend was raped, and his immediate thought was, I need to go kill a Black man. And
not
like,
even that. He said he walked around. He went and took a walk, and he was like looking for something.
Yeah, he was walking around waiting for someone to start some shit with them. Yeah. So he said that he would go to like the neighborhoods where there was Black people at like bars, pubs, or whatever, and he was just waiting for someone to like, whether it was like walk into him or look at him the wrong way or something. But he's looking for someone to start some shit with him.
Yeah, like that. That's the type of mindset.
1J, thank you for the gift sub to Kenny News Network, and Cordactyl, thank you for the gift sub also. Y'all are fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I gotta say, like, there's a reason why people who belong to the police state, who are law enforcement and different and pretty much proxies of law enforcement, they all subscribe to that same type of mindset. Like they're more likely, I would bet my money they're more likely to overlap, and they do actually overlap with a ton of white supremacist organizations or white nationalist sympathetic type groups and attitudes. And it's like, if you have a bunch of Liam Neesons, right, who seem like cool guys, they probably have some Black friends, right? But these are guys who are putting on the uniform every day, and these are the guys who are given 6 months and a pistol of training, right? And they're going out and policing Black people from neighborhoods that they've never lived in on the street. What do you think is going to happen? How can you see an innocent, a Black person, innocent or not, in their eyes, killed in cold-blooded, and then your first thought is like, well, the police were just doing their job. Like it's actually like you have to be smoking fucking crack, like some really good shit from the 80s to be thinking like that.
I want to add just a quick point onto your point before this, Shamel, about we were adding on to this like idea that like white people feel the need to justify. And what's wild to me is that these are the same people who are like, believe women, like they're like, give platform Black voices, like give Black people platforms and give Black organizations platforms. But like, literally we tell you that like, this shit is traumatizing for us to watch. So stop fucking showing it. And we tell you that George Floyd has been murdered in cold blood. And like, still, you like need to see it yourself to be the judge of whether or not George Floyd has been murdered in cold blood. And mind you, and I mean, like full transparency, a lot of this conversation is around, was sort of sparked again. Obviously, we've started this conversation many times, but sparked again by the recent viewing of George Floyd's body cam footage, the murder of George Floyd on police body cam footage, which just got released. But prior to this, there was 2 other footage, like rounds of footage out there. There was the footage, the cell phone footage of his murder, and there was the restaurant footage from the restaurant across the street, Dragon Walk, showing that he was murdered in cold blood. Like, and this was from months ago. Like, how many times do we have to tell you that this was the case before you can really feel like this this police violence was really uncalled for here. It's just wild to me.
I just find it funny that we have like omnipresent, panoptical, like whatever the fuck you want to pronounce it, surveillance in all parts of our society, but like private, public, NSA, like local, whatever, like business source, and yet somehow body cams, and yet somehow it's like unbelievable to you.
We don't have a clear
that
shot.
Black people are dying from cops at this point. It's still unbelievable to you. It's not enough. We need more cameras. Like after the body cameras, we need body cameras on the body cameras. Like,
in fact,
how many angles?
Let's just start making Black people wear body cameras for that matter.
Exactly. Like, I swear that's gonna be something. I swear it is. In fact, it already is because people want to use your iPhone. They're like, yo, if you see something, pop out the phone. Like, don't help.
Hey, look.
Pull out the smartphone, start running around with it. Like,
and let me tell you how dangerous that even is. I remember it was, I want to say 2016. And I got pulled over by a cop, and my memory is losing me, but it may have been like Walter Scott, but someone had just been killed maybe in a month or two prior, and it was still like a very salient situation. And I remember getting pulled over by this officer, and he's a fucking asshole. And I'm just like, hey, why'd you pull me over? I'm just dropping off a friend at the train. And it was kind of like it's one of those areas where you just fake park for 2 seconds and then you keep going, but like you're not really in the way of traffic. Mm-hmm. And I like let out my friend. And he pulls me over, and he's like immediately in that bad mood. And like, so I'm sensing his energy, and I was just like, bro, like you're acting really funny, especially in this like environment. And he's like, what do you mean this environment? Like literally basically telling me like, fuck me to my face. And I'm like, okay, like do you mind if I like, and like before I could finish my sentence, he like draws his gun because like I'm trying to reach for my phone. I'm like, I'm just gonna say, hey, do you mind if I record this? So I'm always surprised when people are able to pull out their phone in the first place, because like Philando Castile literally said, hey, I have a gun, it's legal, you know what I'm saying? And was killed. And like, it's just like majority of Black, like there's so many white people who have never had a gun pulled on them. Like it's literally just never happened.
Also, like a unpleasant reminder, everybody. Philando Castile was killed in a car with a child in
the back seat.
Child in the back seat,
and his
wife there.
Hold up, K Swiftly. Did you just sub a bunch of? Hang on a second. Yes, you did, and then so did Cordactyl. A bunch of gift subs also. Okay, thank you so much for that. And Cordactyl, thank you so much for the gift subs. Also.
I wasn't going to interrupt, but I did want to say Kay just brought us to a level 5 hype train. So
I can't remember how to get us.
Yeah. How do we get to level? Who's the level 6 boss?
I think it caps at 5.
No, it caps at 5, and then if you're like super cool, then you get a like 3,000% completion level 5 hype.
Okay, so you're just trying to flex on us right now?
She didn't have to say that. She didn't have to say that.
Yeah, she just like stunning on our whole channel.
She just said, "You little niggas, you little niggas need to get on my fucking level."
Oh, okay, right. But hold up, Suverin just gifted a bunch of gift subs too. So apparently. Somebody didn't like the level of stun that Kay tried to drop on us. So Suverin's trying to get us to that next level too. So we're gonna hit up.
Suverin said they got us. Stay in our corner.
We're gonna hit a 9,000% level 5 hype train. Okay, it'll be over 9,000. Give it up to
9,000.
Okay, there you go. Just gifting 5 subs. We out here.
Go.
Thank you for that.
And now Suverin, Mozart, and now Suverin again. Damn, you shouldn't have said that. You shouldn't have said that.
We got a hype train off going on right now.
You know what this is.
Last time I checked, 140 is extra credit.
1,000, but it's a little extra credit.
Yeah, but 173%. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Who I don't remember. Was I speaking or was
we're talking about Philando Castile? It was actually Kay Swiftly was talking about.
Kay was speaking.
Yeah, I was just saying how it like was particularly disgusting. Like, Jamel brought up the fact that like it's wild that people believe that they can even like pull out a phone in a lot of situations. And like, Philando is in a situation. He said that he had a weapon in the car, was murdered in cold blood with a child in the backseat and his partner there. Like the idea that there is any limit to like the level of violence that police will enact against Black people at this point is just like beyond ridiculous to me. Like, I don't understand why this is a question in people's minds. I don't understand why like the same. Actually, I I say I don't understand y'all, but I really do understand. I just
Yeah.
want to
Right.
say about that. Like, I do get it.
Yeah.
It's
I'm
just
just in
I catch my-
disbelief.
I
It is.
catch-
Yeah,
catch
it's
myself-
baffling beyond the reason that we're even able to like understand it.
absurd,
It's
and
Yeah,
it's
I catch myself on that one all the time. I was like, I don't understand. You know what? I do understand.
Yeah.
Like, let me not say that. Like, what it really is you're fucking stupid.
Yeah.
I totally understand why you're fucking stupid. I understand that you're fucking stupid. It's not something that I could personally contextualize because I'm not fucking stupid, but I do understand that that's where you are. And it's just like,
and like it's not
the
even that,
idea, like this idea of like people, what Jamal was saying about people pulling out cameras to their benefit when we've seen people be killed by police who are supposed to be there for their benefit, who have come for wellness checks. I had to call the police once when I was in a domestic violence situation, and they asked me a question, and I don't remember what they asked me. Maybe they asked me if I had somewhere else to go, but for whatever reason, I went to reach for my phone. And when I put my hand down to grab my phone, I saw the officer put her hand on her gun. And I immediately put my hands up. And like, that was me reacting in a situation where I was trying to get away from violence. I was trying to get to safety. They were supposed to be there to help me get away from my abuser. And I'm over here with my hands up trying not to get shot because I was looking for my phone to call my mom. So I 100% feel where Jamel is coming from, where when you're like, I don't even know how people have the luxury of pulling out their cell phones to record these things, because it's never something I felt safe doing in the presence of police. But it
I feel like I
ultimately
can hardly move.
yeah.
I'm sorry. I just feel like I can hardly move. Like they tell you to put your hands on the steering wheel and all that shit. Like I'm legitimately like, cop comes behind me. I'm like, yo, don't do anything. They tell me to pull out something. I'm like, do you really want me to do it, or do you want me to like, you want to shoot me for getting my wallet? Because y'all did that to Flannel Castile. Like,
Nah,
I can't tell.
It's serious. Like, I mean, in DC, we have like jump out police, and in PG, which is right outside of DC. I mean, at one point, cops used to literally come to the car with their guns out, if they knew exactly who the person is. I mean, driving in DC and Maryland, big considerations have to be made when you're black. Like, the legal tint is 35. And it's like, this shouldn't necessarily be a big thing, but it's like, do I really want to, go below 35? Because, now I am literally going to be a target of the police every single day. Like, thank God, when I was younger, I swear, when I first started driving, I used to get pulled over so often. Like, often. I swear, like, it was like they could smell that I was.
They'd be like, that's a nigga in that car.
yeah, and it's kind of weird because, like, now that I'm older, and well, I mean, I drive a different type of car, maybe that's why. But it's like, now that I'm older, it's like, in a different location, but it's like I don't get pulled over like that. But I also think about how often people get pulled over, and like you said, Jamil, like, the cops are ready to shoot, right? They look at you as a canonical violent archetype, and they're literally ready to reduce you to less than human. Another thing I've been thinking about was this juxtaposition of how, on the one hand, we currently live in a moment where we understand the logic behind the cultural ethos of taking down monuments and statues that of racist people, right? But on the other hand, we are ready to disseminate videos in the form of representation, right? So, like, to me, like, I fleshing out that contradiction is sort of weird to me, and much of it has to do with like this liberalized understanding of what it means to be privileged or represented in death. Like, that shit needs to be.
What are you talking about? George Floyd, he's reached the apex of black male privilege by dying and getting protests named after him. What are you talking about?
And that's what I was getting ready to say when before I was so rudely interrupted. So, no, I'm just joking.
I was just testifying to you.
I was saying that, so much of the conversation around these fucking lynching videos is we need to see, and you know, we have all said, you know, people need to ask themselves, why do they feel like they need to see this? But like the greater question that I always come back to is, what is accomplished by showing these videos?
Oh.
And people keep making it seem like these are, you know, this is somehow movement work. This is somehow liberatory work. We're somehow making progress. Oh, if we see these videos, then XYZ will happen. And yet XYZ consistently does not happen. We have Black people, and especially Black men, who we've seen be murdered on video. We've seen, you know, we've seen the videos where everybody's like, oh, they're not resisting and this was excessive and they didn't deserve this. And then it goes to court and no charges are brought, or charges are brought and the officers are acquitted. Nothing happens. No. I don't even want to say justice, because what is justice for someone who's been killed? They're not gonna. It doesn't bring them back to life.
This system, like, what's justice in this justice system? Like,
yeah.
Especially when almost 99% of cops never actually get convicted.
Literally.
Right. So I'm like, you know, the people who were murdered are still murdered. Their families are still suffering that loss. Nothing can ever be repaired. But even in this in the context of retribution, or, you know, consequences for taking these lives, that never even happens. You know, the cops don't lose their jobs, or they get fired and they just go work at a different department in a different city, or, you know, they get a fucking viral GoFundMe where they get $50,000 because they killed a Black person.
Yo, that's actually, can we talk about that? That's always been the strangest thing to me. Like, let's say in the instance, like a cop gets rightfully fired, right? Wrongfully acquitted, and somehow, like, waves and droves of white people, right, who otherwise may have been even on the internet saying, you know, it's almost like they feel worse about a white man losing his job, right, for committing an act of racial terror than they do about the person who was actually the victim of his. Like, it's such a, like, I'm gonna donate to that family. How's he gonna provide for them? He just made a mistake.
I mean, you remember that police officer who killed that guy while he was eating food in his own house, and then there was a whole campaign of sympathy. She got hugs from the brother. What's her name?
Oh yeah.
Jane Botham,
Jane Botham and Amber Geiger.
I wasn't gonna say her name. She quit saying her name.
I know.
I had words for her, but they wasn't gonna be nice. They was gonna call me
She got convicted, right?
Yeah,
she got convicted, and they were.
She got a lighter sentence than what she
got sentenced to 5 years, and then the judge didn't the judge give her a hug too?
Yep. Everyone gave her a hug.
I'm saying the way we just ooze fragility and innocence onto white women is just, it is gross. Like, it is gross.
You killed someone.
I remember too. I remember when people saw that it was a Black woman judge. Everyone was like, "Ooh, she's gonna get it now, Black woman judge." And the end result of that trial,
Sambo.
Let me stop talking.
I'm still, like, to this day, I'm pretty sure the only cop that's received, like, a longer sentence for the murder of a woman or of anybody was
Yep, I know where you're going.
Yeah, was Muhammad
what's his
Noor?
name? I think it's Muhammad Noor.
The black cop
who killed a white woman.
The black
Australia damn near wanted him extradited, bro.
Yep, who killed Justine Gannon, a white woman.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
If black people all
he
cops kill white people, this shit would be resolved, bro.
He got
immediately fired.
He got convicted so fast, bro.
No, it was the quickest turnover.
They dotted him up so quick. Oh my god!
Yeah, can we
and it was genuinely an accident too. That's what was crazy about it. Like,
I know.
Jamal,
you can hate Minnesota for these reasons. Don't hate it for me, but hate it for these reasons.
Hey, look, you know, I hate it for Prince because what has he ever done?
I don't understand. I don't get it.
Come on.
I've never seen someone say that.
Anybody
Like,
ever
someone
done to you?
bro. Look at my shirt, bro.
I mean,
wait.
It's not like I don't.
He got he's a Michael Jackson supremacist. Like,
yeah, so am I.
I'm okay with that.
Yo, the fans of Michael Jackson.
What has what has Prince ever done besides tell artists to stand up for themselves? What has Prince ever done to anybody?
Shade
Okay, the only thing Prince ever did was dance in high heels, and I gotta say that takes immense talent. I was amazed.
Prince did more than dancing.
Listen,
Ask your
He's also
parents.
super sassy and passive aggressive in interviews, and I don't like that.
I loved
Okay.
it. Prince would steal your white girlfriend any day, Jamel. Don't worry.
Prince
Chat
dated Michael
right
Jackson
now,
his whole
bro.
career.
Not the white
Chat right
girlfriend.
now.
Still sold less albums.
That was such a random part of the conversation to come back into.
I don't know.
Prince is still in Jamel's white girlfriend.
Yeah.
This white
Yo,
girlfriend.
wait, Rennie's gonna say
propaganda-
something though.
The white girlfriend propaganda is worse than communist propaganda.
I didn't know how much longer we were going to be on here, but I did.
And he also dropped threes in Charlie Murphy's face. Okay, now
Okay,
in high
I'll
heels
give
too.
him that. I'll give him that. Game blouses.
Yeah, but I wanted to explore. I don't know if y'all want to talk about this as well, but like sort of like the memification of Breonna Taylor. And
Yes.
Oh, we got time for that. We got time for that.
what? Yeah, I was about to say what. I mean, I know there's probably a lot that y'all have to say on that, but like some of y'all first thoughts, like what?
Well, are we transitioning?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, just-
It's related for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
It's fine.
kind of. You know, Nina and I were talking about this a little bit the other night. The memification of Breonna Taylor, the commodification of Black Death, that sort of thing.
Well, actually, I guess if we before we transition, the one thought I had about what y'all were saying earlier was that like the search for nuance in the videos that requires you to like look at the video, to me is exactly what leads to all this liberal reformism and all this like leads back into this desire to see like reformative change in the police department, because
Right.
if you keep judging police officers by what they did, you actually believe that that like police policy is not just PR. Like anybody who like Black people know that police policy is just a veneer that they use after the fact so they can add to their police report that they followed the policy. It has nothing to do with what they do. Their actions exceed and go far beyond the Constitution. Like I remember when I was working at this camp, and like there was this kid who was 10 years old, right? Like it was just like a camp, you know, for in like a project or like public housing. And he was telling me that like one time he was home alone playing video games. The police officers knocked on his door. He opens the door. They say they're looking for someone in the house. He says, okay. Like, okay, what am I supposed to do with that? No, they're looking for someone in the area. Have you seen anybody come in this house? He's like, no. They're like, can we search your house? He's like, no, my mom is not home. What do? Do they follow the Fourth Amendment? Do they pull out their warrant? Do they wait for the mom? Do they try to figure? Do they leave? No, they walk their asses in that motherfucking house, take advantage of that 10-year-old. Then they go into his garage and they ask him, "Is that your bike?" The bike in his closed garage, asking if he stole his own bike. Like cops don't follow procedures; they just use procedure when you ask them questions about what they've done. Right. So you need to stop thinking that like just because when you see a Black person get killed for and it seems like for no reason and so far out of your conception of what police officers are supposed to do, you need to like flip your understanding. It's not that that person was innocent, is that Black people are always already guilty in their eyes and they just do whatever the fuck they want. Like police officers can just do whatever the fuck they want.
And that's what I was speaking to when I said that people keep saying we need to see these videos, but the question then becomes, what is that accomplishing? And it's like the people who most ardently argue that we need to see these videos are, you know, white liberals who claim to be, you know, allies to Black people in discussing racial justice. And it's like they feel like they need to see the video. They need to be armed with these videos to make these arguments to whites that this is why police violence is a problem. This is why police brutality is a problem. This is the bad aspects of policing, so that, you know, as Anansi said, they can push these reforms. And like, this is why we need police to do better. When what actually needs to be happening is that they need to reconcile the fact that our system of policing is inherently anti-Black. Police violence, police killings are inherently anti-Black violence, anti-Black murder. And like, they need to go forward armed with that understanding to be advocating for abolishing the police, period. Doesn't matter. It's not about individual police. It's not about bad apples. It's not individual situations and, okay, this one was really bad and this was really extreme and we need to have less of this and we need to pull back in these areas.
We need more funding for police to take nice classes.
Right. It's none of that. It's that policing is inherently anti-Black, and we need to, and that's the argument that you need to make. That's the whole argument. You don't need to see any videos. You don't need to circulate any videos. The at its core, the system of policing needs to be abolished. And every time that police wield the power of the state to murder us, it is racist violence. So there's never a need to see those videos. And we are, these videos are not new, but we're at least 6 years into, Michael Brown and, Trayvon Martin and Eric Garner and all of these deaths that quote unquote radicalize so many people. And we've seen so many videos predominantly of Black men killed extrajudicially by police, by Neighborhood Watch, by former cops, by people who were empowered by white supremacy to commit these killings. And for none of these murders, for all these murders that have happened, we are no closer to having any real systemic change that meaningfully impacts the lives of Black people. So what the fuck are these videos doing?
Right. I mean, look, bro, for the liberals who love to, just literally just ride Obama's sack all day. You can look at the amount of Obama did so much, right? So much incremental police reform. Man, I say incremental with emphasis, right? Like little shit, like, oh, I'm gonna reduce the amount of fucking military gear that they get or some shit. But like, and you can also find like other shit he did that was like literally diametrically opposite to like quote unquote like taking steps to reform the police. And like if you just look at the numbers, right? Obama there's probably no Obama effect on the number of police killings against Black men, armed or unarmed or otherwise, right? Mm-hmm. And it just goes to show that whether federal policy or whether state and local policy, well, one, like that actually speaks to the problem. Like the federal government has no reign on the way law enforcement handles their policing in any case. I think it's 40% or no, it might be 40%. I think 40% of all agencies report to the UCR, if I'm correct, and I think less than 15% of all, or less than 1% of all data submitted to the FBI UCR, which is where all the crime that's submitted to, where we get our murder rate and all that shit from. Less than 1% of those are audited by the FBI.
Wait, word?
So, yeah. So what
this
you're
is a
getting
primary.
Yeah, this is where you get your white supremacists saying, 1350, 13% of the population. 50%
these numbers just, what the fuck?
Yeah,
the data is just...
the data is incredibly volatile and suspect. Like, and also someone like all these justified deaths of Black men, they get written off as a felonious killing. So that's not like, so basically that gets put onto the Black, that goes on the Black crime rate. You know what I'm saying? That person was in the commission of a felony.
Sim just subscribed. Thank you, Sim.
Hey, thank you, Sim.
Confirmed white girlfriend.
No, she's not white. We're not doing this.
Listen,
I'm playing. I'm trying to get you in trouble, bro.
Just for knowledge,
we're not gonna slander Sim. Sim is not white, but I just reminding Sim that she deserves better than Jamel, who be running around with white girls.
You know what? I will go to the grave. That this is like the level of slander. This is gonna radicalize me into like a member of ISIS. If you guys
wait, I want to hear what you have to say, but also Jamel, somebody in chat just asked you for a citation, and I'm living.
Oh, a citation? What do they need? What they need? What the 13? Wait, what does someone need a citation for? Oh, it's a source for what? Which source? Hold on, I got you. Hold on, let me see if I can find it.
Yeah.
Do you have a source for that? I'm curious.
They actually are curious, I promise.
But Jamel, I just think it's always funny to me when people ask Jamel for citations, because Jamel got citations on deck.
Exactly, which we all know, which is why we ask him for citations.
He has a book within arm's reach at all times.
For
Hold
sure.
on, I gotta find it, but I actually have it bookmarked somewhere here. Let me
That's
see.
Jamel's love
Actually, you
language.
can hit me with that citation too, because I'm trying to do
Yeah.
research on crime rates.
Do
like,
you,
as
do
a-
you have a source for that? Is Jamel's love language? But but go ahead, Q. What were you going to say?
No, I was gonna say that's Jamel's excited voice when someone
Yeah.
subscribes and Jamel says thank you so much for the sub. That's his excited voice.
Yeah, you gotta understand. I'm like that parent who's like so happy, but they don't really show it.
Yeah, it's the right
Yeah.
question.
Good on you bringing home that A. That's nice. That's good.
No, I'm
But
down
I'm
to talk
going
about
back
the
to what we're talking about, like what is accomplished by disseminating these videos. It always seems to fall back into, privilege discourse, where people will argue that it's a privilege for Black men to have this visibility after death. It's a privilege for Black men to have their lynching videos circulated in these ways where everybody sees them being murdered after they're killed. And my question would be, Rennie, how would you respond to the assertion that this is a privilege that Black men have when it comes to police brutality and murder?
I would say it's dangerous and it's wholly intellectually dishonest. Again, like as Jamil pointed out earlier, if the apex of privilege is white men and privilege and death and representation is what Black men get, then white men should, of course, have so many videos on the web, and we should always see their deaths being disseminated throughout social media, 24-hour cable news, and the like, right? For me, there's so many intellectually dishonest conversations in regards to the way that we talk about privilege, especially as it pertains to representation, right? A lot of how we talk about the death of Black men and the dissemination of these videos honestly assumes that there's a 1-to-1 ratio with everyone else. I don't think people understand how much Black men are killed by the police. Let me see if I can get this off the top of my head. So for example, this year alone, right? The Washington Post, according to the Washington Post, they are tracking fatal shootings, right? So fatal shootings would not even encompass George Floyd, right? But since this entire year, I believe it's 112 Black men who have been killed. We know 5 names. We know five names, right?
Mhm.
What does it mean to call this a privilege in any form?
And some of them don't count because, again, you said it's fatal shooting. So there's names we know who that don't count for Black men and Black women as well. But there are names that wouldn't be part of that data of who we know because they weren't shot.
Yep. Just like,
Right.
I mean, so George Floyd wouldn't even be encompassed in that data. And if you look at it, like, because they have all the names, George Floyd's not in there because technically he wasn't fatally shot. But they do basically, data has different research methodologies, right? So you'd also have data that just has fatal encounters, period. So there is fatal encounters data, I believe from 2014 to 2019, right? So basically fatal encounters just involved with the police. I believe the number was Black people was 2,353. Of that number, Black men were killed 2,152.
Really quick, thank you to the Brishy and Pine 187 for the subs. But she said 2,152.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I had the number as 100.
Should also let you know that Brishy, by the way, is like a huge friend for the stream. Brishy was part of like the crew with Wildman, who were like some of the people that were like instrumental in helping get some of the stream popularity, getting people to pay attention to the stream, subscribe and whatnot. So thanks a lot, Brishy. Appreciate you, bro.
Did I say 2,152?
Yeah, 2,152. Yeah,
Yes,
I had the number. I had remembered it as 62, so I was off. But go ahead.
And another one, we just Divine Dev Studio just subscribed to tier 1. Thank you so much, Divine Dev. And Divine Dev Studios, by the way, is if I remember correctly, Divine Dev Studios is a black-owned game dev studio. So thank you so much, bro. Appreciate that.
I think one thing I just realized from what Rennie was saying is that like equal treatment does not mean like better or representation or like some type of privilege. Like because like it actually dovetails into what we were about to talk about the Breonna Taylor. Like people said that Breonna Taylor was not being talked about. What happened when Breonna Taylor was talked about? They made her into a whole meme, and it became the most pervasive act of just like lampoonery of a person's death that I've pretty much ever seen. Which is like
goes back to what we were
what
talking
happens
about.
to all that visibility shit.
Exactly, which is what we were talking about with this whole, narrative around privilege and visibility, where they say, black men take up too much space in conversations about police brutality and are hypervisible. But like, what is actually gained by the space, quote unquote, that they occupy? Because what usually comes from it is justifications for why they deserve to be killed. Digging up their dirt in their past, where people are digging up George Floyd's history and trying to criminalize him and posthumously and talk about how all the things that he was guilty of in life. They fucking dug up Trayvon Martin's fucking MySpace, and he had a picture with a gun on his MySpace. They dug up Stephon Clark's tweets, and so it's like what actually is the privilege of that hypervisibility, which is what I think Rennie was speaking to.
Yeah, I just think it's so dishonest because like I just don't know what it means to suggest that over 90% of the people within the Black community who die by the hands of police violence are Black men, and somehow that means that they're privileged. I just don't know what that means. Like for the life of me, it just suggests that you're still looking at Black men as if they're 3/5 of a human. Like, they just don't.
What it means, like what people have been saying, or at least what I've been able to ascertain so far, is that if you are Black and male and you're killed at the hands of police, people are going to show up to march for you. That is a privilege. Is that after you're dead, people are going to show up to march for you?
Which I think is what Rennie was getting to when he was talking about how there's been 100. What was the number, Rennie?
Which one? Oh, this year. So this year, according to the Washington Post, fatal shootings, there were 112 Black men so far this year, and we know about 5 names. I don't know.
Hold on. I just want to jump in real quick. On the FBI, who I think if you have me on Twitter, shoot me a message by this evening because I have it, but I cannot find it at the moment, and I want to follow up on that. I don't ever want to be known as someone who makes up shit. So, so just if you have me on Twitter at Jamel the Creator, just shoot me a DM and follow up with me. But I'll definitely have that stat for you, and I'll probably share it publicly if I can. I'll tweet it publicly on the FBI UCR stats because I do have them somewhere here, but I'm not as organized as I should be. Can't find these motherfuckers.
Dr. Courtney is part of the Resistance Noir family.
Yes, sir, Dr. Courtney.
I was just gonna say that like Angela Davis brought up a good point on this because like in Our Prison's Obsolete, in the chapter on how gender affects the prison industrial complex and how like particularly, so she talks about like how there can be like there's a masculinizing of like victims when talking about like solidarity over victims. But one thing she says is equal treatment does not equal like anything. So she points out the fact that like basically white feminists were arguing in the 1990s that like women were not given equal treatment. Female prisoners were not being given equal treatment in prisons because they weren't like being forced to like work, and they were like less likely to get into solitary confinement. And it was like women prison guards who were like equal treatment means that when women do something wrong in the prison, they need to get as harsh a punishment as the male prisoners. And it was like, so it's like we're being subjected to this kind of like spectralization of our own death, and then y'all are saying it's privilege. It's like that's the same type of shit. It's punishment, it's violence. It's not like something that should be recognized as a beneficial element.
Yeah, and I gotta add on to that, like that very nature of like people see gender in such like people who claim to be radical about gender see gender in such a rigid binary that even their analysis of gender reproduces hierarchy without them realizing it, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So it's like you can't like, so if like the biggest hiccup in this area is like when you're comparing, you can't look at something that happens to indigenous women, right? And then look at something that happens to white women and be like, yeah, that's the same shit. And that's what people do all the time because they flatten the category woman so that all women must have a universal experience. All men must have a universal experience, so on and so forth.
These are the same people with intersectional feminists in their bios on Twitter, though.
I hate that as an
It's
adjective.
really diversity.
Intersectional shouldn't even be an adjective, but
and intersectional feminists are really good at saying white women, Black women, Asian women, Native, Indigenous women have different experiences. Yeah, and they're very good at like breaking people down into these categories of who has a unique experience under womanhood, and then turning around and being like men. And like there's no distinctions under the male category like that. They'll like intersection and intersectional feminists, even when they're the ones who aren't turfy, like they can even get the nuances between cis women and trans women. But
I am a biological woman.
Right.
J.K. Rowling popping out with the
Oh my god,
That shit is
J.K.
so
Rowling,
silly.
the creator.
But when it comes to men, there
I'm
is
crying.
absolutely no
Put that up.
like this. It's this universal. Men are the reason for oppression, and like as Rennie and Jamel have pointed out numerous times on Twitter, there's no consideration for the experiences of racialized men, and specifically of Black men. Which brings us back to we get this narrative that Black men have this male privilege that manifests in death because people talk about the fact that they were killed. But what is
What
What
the
is
hell
that?
are these comments, bro?
Nah, Q is over here getting thirst trap God.
Wow. And then she did simply looking for the compliments.
Oh my gosh.
God.
And Kate Swiftly came on here putting out the Earth Mother vibes and everything. And
right?
She prepared to go. She ready to go to Woodstock and shit.
You got the sage out. She's like Erica Badu.
Yeah,
You got the Harlem Renaissance vibes.
He about to be hitting that fuck, what's that dance called? Fuck, Lindy Hop.
I thought you were gonna say, "Oh, that's awful." Damn.
You're horrible.
Hey, Q,
I thought you were.
I like that.
Q, really quick.
I thought you were gonna say electric slide. You had to go about 50 years before that. Damn.
To your question earlier, you stated you were like you posed the question. You said something about the privileges in the fact that the privilege is in the fact that people will protest for the death of Black men, right? And as we know, there's this quote by Tommy Curry that really speaks saliently to this particular point, right? So he says, while we may disown the racist caricatures of Black men and boys as super predators, we simultaneously imagine them as voids, vacuous figures that we are not fine knowing. We do not care about how they suffered during their lives, but we love performing outrage at their deaths. So essentially, and I posed this question. I posed this question on Twitter the other day. I said, so Black men have the highest rates of being murdered by the police. As a result, protests to these lynchings take the form of an anti-state resistance. So what does it mean then when anti-state narratives and languages are repurposed into Black men are simply threats to everyone within their community, right? And I talked about how the shift from anti-state to Black men are threats, and you see this every time a Black man is killed and the videos are disseminated. You start getting these narratives about Black men, killing everyone, right? So I said, the shift to Black men as threats argues that you are no longer talking about the violence of the state, right? This is what it means of a market of consumption. In this way, you go from intentionally resisting the state to tacitly asking the state to act on your behalf. Mm-hmm. So as these videos are being disseminated, what continues to get repurposed? The narratives about Black men as violent. The narrative, every single time a Black man is killed on video, there are narratives that come out of nowhere about Black men being violent, Black men. Yeah. So
someone did it in this chat actually, and I just want to quickly cut you off, and I'll let you hop right back in. And someone's like, "Hey, well, Black people commit more crimes." And I always just say, well, let's just
suck my dick.
Funny, yeah, that too. You can always suck my dick.
You can always do that too.
But here's a thought experiment. No one would disagree that white communities are under policed and Black communities are over policed. Like, like numerically, if you go to Brooklyn right now, there's a motherfucking cop on every fucking corner from East New York all the way down to probably where the black people stop. Maybe Fort Greene is where they stop. And if you just take all those police, like these OTS police, and put them in white neighborhoods, I would bet you every dollar in my bank account, it's not that many, but I bet you every dollar in there that you're gonna find that there are suddenly more crimes being discovered in these white neighborhoods.
Oh,
you know what I
absolutely.
mean? Like, crimes are always being drug. Take the amount of drug crimes. What percentage? I think consistently, black people are arrested, convicted, stopped, surveilled, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. More than white people for crimes that we commit at commensurate rates, or crimes that even committed lesser rates. Oh, go ahead. Disagree.
I'm going to disagree with you slightly in that, like, I don't think it would matter if you put more cops in white neighborhoods, because I think that they would let them off of the crimes anyways.
Oh, sure.
No.
Yeah, no, that's valid. So the real argument is
Like,
white
they
people
wouldn't
are
actually
committing
criminalize
crimes,
this.
right? Yeah. So if the cops were actually in these neighborhoods and they were acting under the veil of a Rawlsian ignorance, if you will.
I mean, it goes back to like
Wow.
the most obvious example of this that I've seen is in my work around child abuse.
Yeah.
I mean, the work that I've done with children in youth shelters, in children's homes, children who were taken from their homes because of violence, or who had fled home because of violence. When I was in youth shelters as a child who ran away from my home because of violence, I encountered all these white kids from middle class, upper middle class homes who were on the streets because they did not want to go home because it wasn't safe for them.
Mhm.
And there was no intervention for them because, their parents were inherently seen as not being able to do those violences. White people don't do those things.
Yeah.
And there isn't the hyper scrutiny for white parents that there is for Black parents and other non-white parents. And so, you see these figures on child abuse and reported child abuses and about how much more violent or how much more negligent Black parents are, but there's also not the surveillance. And there's been documented research over, the course of decades on how much more surveillance there is for Black parents and scrutiny in Black homes than there is in white homes.
And not only that, but the likelihood that you get the process, right, of from surveillance, the moment like a CPS or a state official walks in your house, the things that, in the same way, it's basically like another form of police, right? The things that you can get away for as a white parent, like, oh, you didn't feed your child today? Okay, just make sure you get them something tomorrow. But if you're a Black mother, it's like, oh, we're arresting you and we're taking your children from you. You know what I mean? Like, and don't have someone in your house who like shouldn't be in there because there's fucking restrictions on who you can have living with you, and now that person's criminalized, all sorts of shit. And then we know and then unfortunately the rates of children who are abused and and who are cycled through the foster care system it's actually like one of the most the least spoken about things. It's like that's one of the most vulnerable groups in the entire fucking country, right? Children who were foster care specifically. And then when they get out the system, this is actually the highest risk group for the commission of crimes, for drug use, for alcohol abuse, because they have all this fucking trauma that's never been undone. And so it's, it goes to say this shit is so cyclical. And so when you look at
all of it cycles, and none of it exists in a vacuum, and that's why it's interesting whenever people bring up the concept of crime, but don't want to talk about what crime really is and where crime really comes from.
I think it points to Fanon's, like when he said the cause is a consequence. And he literally says that you commit an act of white people commit acts of violence against Black people, and it serves as just the act itself becomes the evidence necessary. So the crime rate is a function of the arrest rate. So you just keep arresting Black people. Therefore, then there's data showing that there are more crimes in those areas because you arrested them more often. That generations down the line, you put that into a computer. Now you have predictive policing and CompStat policing saying, oh, yeah, we just predicted that this would be more criminalist because literally for generations, we've just sat in these neighborhoods arresting people for petty crimes.
Literally, the over-policing in Black communities is the worst, most violent form of confirmation bias.
Speaking of CompStat,
already decided we are criminals who will commit crime, who will hurt and rape and kill everyone, and they go into our neighborhoods and try to prove themselves right. But go ahead, Jamel.
Speaking of CompStat, because I love when we talk about CompStat. So David Bratton or Bill Bratton, it's Bill Bratton. Bill sounds a lot more racist, and that is the correct name. Bill Bratton, who was
Bill
a former commissioner of the
I
NYPD,
don't trust Bill.
he is by my account, he's a racist, and most people would say he's a racist. He's also one of the architects of the stop and frisk program, and also like this predictive policing through racist algorithms and shit. And I gotta say, Miss Kamala Harris wrote in her book, her little tough on crime book or whatever the fuck it was called, which I have on Kindle, and she says she praises Bill Bratton's approach to policing. And Bill Bratton is known for this CompStat shit. So I just want to throw that out there. Fun fact.
Basically, it's basically the Windows policing of the 70s. But I wanted to go back to like the conversation about crime. Like, and as abolitionists teach, crime. People don't commit crimes, right? They commit acts. Acts get socially constructed as crimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Blackness within the world of anti-blackness is socially constructed and criminalized, right? What that means is that you could literally go to Harvard campus, you can literally go to Yale campus, a predominantly white institution, and you could arrest somebody for public drunkenness, you could arrest somebody for smoking weed, you could arrest somebody for domestic violence, right? But that's not where the cops are looking, right? So to your point, Case Woodley, even if there was this surveillance around predominantly white spaces, they would not be criminalized because crime itself isn't constructed and codified around whiteness, right?
Yeah.
It was
look at how
on campuses that I lived in, because in UF they literally had a policy where if you were on campus and you were a student and you got in trouble, like essentially if you OD'd and got to the hospital for overdosing some type of drug or alcohol poisoning, this was specifically made for these like fraternity and sorority parties. You went to the hospital or you reported to the police officer would not arrest you. But it was shown, like there was an article showing that they, arrest Black people for drug crimes across town. It's segregated city, of course, arrest people for like drug crimes across town while they are like allowing for like quite like a pretty much consistent like event of like ODing on campus from people who literally just like take drugs like in these parties. And it's like you could go to a sorority and find cocaine and hard drugs everywhere. That's the thing, that is like they're just sitting there on legit mountains of shit. Like it actually is a drug den. And then you're just sitting there talking about like what happened in Black communities.
And the thing is, people are not unaware of this. White people who talk about crime and criminality of Black people are not unaware of how they've committed crime. They're not unaware of the drugs that they did in high school, the parties they went to where there was underage drinking, the college parties where they went through, the times that they've sped and not been pulled over, the times where they've driven drunk and not been pulled over.
Or they were pulled over and got off because their daddy is the lawyer or DA or something.
Exactly.
Or senator.
They're not unaware of those privileges that they've been able to benefit from. They are just convinced that they deserve them because they're white, and Black people deserve to be criminalized for our actions and engaging in similar conduct. So it's not that they truly believe we commit more crime. It's that they believe that we are the only ones who deserve to be criminalized and punished for acts that are considered criminal. And all of that is inherently anti-Black.
Yes,
wait, someone
absolutely did a book on the myth of Black criminality. Hold on a second. Yeah,
someone asked for a book on the kind of anti-Black origins of policing, and I'm gonna pull it up for you right now.
Muhammad's book is good.
Kay is over there.
The condemnation of
knitting or something.
I'm just gonna write it in the chat. Whoever asked, I'm gonna write it right now.
Here it is.
Your cat.
I just finished that book. That was really good.
Can you, Rennie? Can you post the title in the chat so that people can look it up?
Jamil got it.
Yeah. The condemnation of Blackness, race, crime, in the modern urban, whatever the fuck, America.
Basically, like the construct of crime is racist and anti-Black. Suverin coming through with another gifted sub to Jamel the Creator.
I was gonna.
Appreciate that. I think I have a separate. It's because I have a separate Twitch channel that I'm probably never going to use, but I just want to point out that K Swiftly was slandering me because I don't have any followers on my Twitch that I don't use.
I was gonna dish this up earlier too, but I wasn't sure if you already had one.
I'm probably not going to
Did you
stream
want
on that
to go
account
after?
much, so don't worry about it.
But yeah, so basically, like, policing is racist, the construct of crime is racist, and there's absolutely zero benefit to circulating these videos of Black people being lynched, Black men especially being murdered, because people have been doing this for, you know, the better part of a decade now, and nothing has come from it. And the idea that it's a privilege to have people, you know, to dissect your life and your death after you die is some fucking anti-Black bullshit that, as Rennie and Jamel have, and I think even Q have articulated on Twitter, feeds into, you know, constructs of Black male disposability and the idea that, you know, the normalization of Black male death. Because to even argue that Black men, you know, are privileged by the amount of space that people take, that their deaths take up in conversations around violence, when their deaths are the majority of the deaths that happen at the hands of police, or are privileged because, you know, people might care about one or two victims, which I think Rennie was getting at, and somehow like, never got around to like fully being able to frame that. But like, since 2014, from 2014 to 2019, as Rennie said, there were 2,152 Black men killed who were killed in fatal encounters with police. And I don't know about you, but I don't know 2,152 Black men's names who were
We know
killed.
less than 1%.
Yeah, 1%. Yeah, I think we did the calculation. It's about 1%.
22. You would have to be able to name 22 Black men offhand to say that you know 1%.
And in that same time frame, there were a little over 200. Rennie, do you have the exact number? Like 270, something like that, of Black women?
It
240, something in that range.
It would have had to been 261, 251, or something like that.
Yeah.
I would say, I'll be honest, I've never really felt comfortable with this whole say their name shit, like on either side. Like, I feel it's disrespectful. Like, it makes a spectacle out of it. Like, you're gonna put their like name on a shirt, like you put Shay's name on a shirt like that.
And I'm not gonna hold you. That did happen because of a certain. I'm not gonna say no names, but you all know who started that.
It was intellectually dishonest. That's all I'll say. Like,
it was
again, the idea that there's a 1-to-1 ratio. I do not like the idea. I think it's unnecessary to try to compare the deaths of Black men and Black women. I think it's totally unnecessary.
And that's the thing, is I hate that it becomes a compare, contrast, and a competition, because I don't think
it's so thick.
I don't think the names of Black men who are killed or the conversations around Black men who are killed take up a disproportionate amount of space compared to the number of Black men who are killed. Like I said, we're talking about 250 Black women who are killed and 2,152 Black men who are killed.
Yeah.
So if you know 10 more names of Black men than you know of Black women, that would make sense in a situation where there were 10 times as many Black men killed as there were Black women. And that's not to say that the deaths of those Black women don't matter, and that they should be part of the conversation. And I won't say that there's not erasure that happens, because people will talk about, you know, oh, they're killing our fathers and our sons and our brothers, and they don't mention how, you know, our sisters and our mothers and our daughters are also being killed. Like, they should be part of that conversation. And there is erasure that happens, but the response is not to pit them against each other and make it a competition of who dies more, because no one is served by that competition.
And then it almost becomes like you're casting blame on other Black people almost, right? That rather than the systems that are causing the deaths themselves, right? Like, I almost have people. Go ahead.
Which brings us back to the framing around Breonna Taylor, because Breonna Taylor's death was made to be in competition with George Floyd's death, with Ahmaud Arbery's death. The conversation around her dying was, oh, y'all don't talk about Black women as much as you talk about Black men. We're going to use her death to prove that we can get more trending for her name than we can for Black men. It was like the whole conversation was about competing.
Don't forget about Breonna Taylor, after everyone was clearly not forgetting about Breonna Taylor.
It was about pitting Black people against one another, murdered Black people against one another. And it was the sickest fucking game that people could have played with people who were killed. And that is what brought us these fucking bullshit memes, because everybody made a fucking game and a fucking joke for no reason.
I mean, you literally every single person was like no one was actually saying her name. People were like, "You're not saying her name," and then for a while, people were misspelling her name in the hashtag.
Right. Really quick.
Hey, look. I've actually
really quick. Joseph Freeman said they turned it into a versus, and that is the most real shit.
That is true, bro.
That.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna hold you.
I remember into a fucking verses on Instagram.
Yo,
wow.
I remember. No, that's powerful. And I remember like specifically seeing, and I always have this, like, I love the search tweet function because you can always find out people's like hidden ulterior motives and what they have said before or what they haven't said, right? And I remember seeing a bunch of people saying this very specific phrasing. You guys have forgotten about Breonna Taylor, right? One of them being a very highly respected academic, right? And I remember just searching the tweets of these names, and not just for Breonna Taylor, but also for Corin Gaines, but for Atiana Jefferson, for Sandra Bland, for all of these other Black women who have been killed in by law enforcement with impunity. And actually, to my surprise, these motherfuckers weren't even talking about them, and yet they were coming out of nowhere with the woodwork. Almost their first time mentioning Breonna Taylor was to say, "You guys have forgotten about Breonna Taylor. This is your first fucking time mentioning her. You're using her name to basically increase your social capital. You don't even give a fuck about her death." Yeah. And that's the shit that really blew mine.
It's becoming an algorithm for them to increase social capital. It's like, yo, if when someone dies, let me make sure to say the Black woman's name so that I can get the social capital from saying nobody said that.
Yeah, I think someone in the chat posted people making picture captions, and it's like, anyways, Breonna Taylor, and it's like, are you dead ass right now?
Yeah,
you know, like
I hate those so much.
It's gotten so weird. Like, people will be talking about one subject, and then they'll go right into but don't forget about the arresting of Breonna Taylor's murderers. And I don't think people actually understand that 99%.
They haven't even read the case, bro. Like
99% of these police do not.
Right. And everybody's talking about, Breonna Taylor hasn't received justice like all these other Black people have. None of these people have received justice.
George Zimmerman's still free, and he's not even a cop. He's not even protected. He doesn't have the protection of a cop, bro.
Like, they charged the officers in George Floyd's death and in Rayshard Brooks' deaths recently. But just like Reedy said, they charged the officer in Mike Brown's case, and that didn't result in a conviction. So that doesn't mean nobody is getting justice around here. It does not need to be in a game of competition.
Look what it took for Ahmaud Arbery's non-cop or former cop killers to be indicted. It literally took independent fucking involvement, right? And I'm going.
The thing that made me the fucking angriest about fucking George Zimmerman was that George Zimmerman killed Trayvon Martin and went home that night. And they were like, he said it was self-defense and they have a stand your ground law. I don't give a fuck about none of that. Even if you say something is self-defense, even if it's stand your ground or whatever, do you not still have to go to trial? Do you not still get arrested and charged before people just let you go home? He killed that boy and they let him go home that night. That shit was sick.
This goes back to the criminality being codified through anti-Blackness, right? In the Trayvon Martin situation, stand your ground law. What the ironic thing about that is Trayvon Martin technically also could have stood his ground, right? Because he wasn't the aggressor. So what does it mean to always be the one being preyed on in every situation? And this is what it is. That's what I keep saying. Like when it goes back to these videos, they are aids to memory. They allow you to travel through time. We literally always have to remember these things. Mike Brown, literally, they showed that media.
Somebody in the chat said Oscar Grant. Yeah.
They showed that media image of him lying around for hours. Blood going down the drain. Different people had videos.
Wait, I didn't hear what Kay said. What did you say, Kay?
I said they literally made an entire movie about Oscar Grant, and that didn't do shit.
Look, and then I even think about
if the movie was accurate. I didn't read up on the case, but if the movie was accurate, was he actually shot in his back while he was handcuffed on the ground? Yeah. Was that what really happened?
Yeah. No, there was
a video of that though, but I don't think it was like
I mean, yeah, I wasn't gonna watch the video, but I just I didn't.
I've
No,
never
the
seen the
video
movie,
was-
and I've
the
never
video
seen the video. Yeah.
The video was widely disseminated to the point where I saw it while scrolling through social media.
I'm glad I never seen it.
Right.
Yeah, it was
Right.
it was
Just
one of
like
the.
This was like
Yeah.
2009, 2000, and then like 2013 was when the movie came out. I looked it up a little bit ago because I was going to bring it up earlier in the conversation.
Is that the one with Michael B. Jordan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fruitvale Station.
That was a good
Yeah. I've never
Actually-
seen either of them.
Well,
I actually think Michael B. Jordan did a really good job in his role in Fruitvale Station.
Yeah, I was about to say
that must have been the only time he ever did a good job.
Well, can I say
Whatever,
something?
I
real
don't,
quick? I
I
just
don't
thought of
leave Michael B.
something.
Jordan alone. Bye. Go ahead, Anonymous.
I was gonna say that like one of the things I don't like about the like don't forget about thing about like when they say like it's like it's definitely good to make sure that we're not like masculinizing police violence and talking about the entire Black community. But what I don't like is when they say I think what Rennie said was really important. They always say don't forget about, like they're always making Black women
As an addendum.
experience auxiliary and like, as an addendum to the general
Yeah.
experience, which actually contradicts the entire purpose of like recognizing the holistic form of police violence that affects all of us.
Mhm.
You're literally
And I
always
had a-
talking about them as if it's like they're the secondary thing. Like, don't forget about Breonna Taylor. Like, fucking like look at the fine print. It's like
Right.
we were
And
talking about
also-
her, but now y'all
and
just acting
also-
like she's the secondary thing.
Right. And also, like Jamel said, it puts the burden of responsibility on Black people and not on the fucking systems and not on the policing and the people who are out here murdering us. And I had a thread about this like last week or the week before when I was like, this is what's going on. Since nobody's actually talking about Breonna Taylor, everybody's tweeting about how nobody's talking about Breonna Taylor, but nobody's actually talking about Breonna Taylor. Let's talk about what's happening with Breonna Taylor's case. Let's talk about what's happening with the investigation. Let's talk about why the cops haven't been arrested and charged yet. Let's talk about the fact that because there was no video footage in this case and Louisville's laws say that it's illegal to fire police officers without an investigation having been completed, and their police are protected by police unions, and their laws actually protect them, saying that until the investigation is completed and they can drag their heels with this investigation for as long as they want, they don't actually have to fire these officers. And people are protesting in the streets of Louisville, and people are protesting all across the country. But at the end of the day, Louisville has the protection of their laws, and their police department has the protection of their laws that's keeping them from having to move any faster with this. And it is not on Black people forgetting or not forgetting Breonna Taylor that the people who have killed her were not charged, and that the way that you guys frame these conversations puts the burden of responsibility on us to make white supremacy not white supremacy.
Right. It's like the idea that Black men are erasing the space for the representation of Black women when it's police that are actually doing the erasing. So
that's what I'm saying. Like they're actually doing systemic erasing. They're not being held accountable for it. But yet somehow us talking about it on Twitter and making sure these names circulate for like somebody's capital is the linchpin to changing the system. Like people talk about they care more about the
pop quiz.
Yeah, it's a pop quiz. It's
that's
like
what I don't like the fact that when I try to recall a name, I'm like, oh man, I should really know that person's name. And I'm like, no, like, I mean, I get why I need to know that person's name, but there have been literally thousands of people executed at the hands of police, and I'm not going to be able to know all their names. That's the thing. And it's like, why? The thing is, my recalling every single name, because again, it's not going to be possible to recall every single name. It just isn't. The ability to change the system is not incumbent on my ability to recall every single name. Exactly. That is a representational accomplishment. That is not a systemic accomplishment. The actual systemic accomplishment is when we've defunded, abolished the police, is when we've ended qualified immunity. It is when we move funding out of policing into community support. Unions. Yep, when we get rid of police unions, when we overthrow capital, like those are the actual systemic changes that are going to make a difference. Like that's what the community needs. It is not just a simple recall of names. It's the recall of names helps your argument, but I'm not interested in arguing about this anymore. I'm interested in overthrowing whatever system keeps perpetuating these outcomes.
They conflate conscious raising with like actual change. Like they think that because more people will know, that actually means something that's going to change materially. They like sit back and they wait for things to change materially. Like no, we got to make a change materially because they're not doing it.
Awareness is a fucking scam.
Minneapolis is on some absolute fuck shit right now. With our
there's always something happening in Minneapolis. What is going on in your city?
Square. Minneapolis is wild. Yeah.
Minneapolis is just wild.
Oh, wildin'.
No, but so basically, like, you know, we got famous for claiming that we were going to defund the police, and then they refused to make defunding the police a ballot initiative. And then the budget for this year came out. The city council approved this budget for this year with a $1.5 million reduction in the police budget of $193 million.
Wow.
And then they're like now talking about so they put together a commission to consider the possibility of defunding the police. That'll be
Nice. More commissions.
It's better than all the money being redirected to safety officers in schools like they did over here.
They're gonna have a meeting about a meeting to possibly consider a proposal.
That's what they did with reparations.
What had happened was the Minneapolis public schools canceled their contract with the Minneapolis Police Department and then hired private security. Already happened.
So former cops.
Yep, exactly.
So it's like P.
Or off-duty cops, you know.
Private contractors. Nice.
Yeah, private contractors. So yeah, so now this
PMC class
going, and the commission refuses to push for it being a ballot addendum too, because there's like a couple different ways that this could have happened, and like they've basically just shut down every way that it could happen, and within the past 2 weeks. So yeah, so that's really nice, y'all.
So what you're saying is Jamel was right in saying fuck Minnesota.
Yeah, fuck Minnesota. I don't tell lies.
I'm not going to say that you're wrong per se, but also the comment wasn't at me, and I don't appreciate that. But you can say fuck Minnesota because it sucks.
Yeah.
To be fair though, this is like happening all over the country right
Tell you
now.
what.
I promise you, if you start tracking the defund efforts that are happening, it's not actually happening.
Yeah, they're all getting derailed very, very strong, and it honestly starts at the top. You know, your governors, your senators. You will not find one senator or governor who's incumbent who is not, especially one who is up for re-election, who will take a hardline stance and say, "Yeah, let's do this shit. I'm with you guys." You will not find one.
Joe Biden will.
Hey, Joe Biden is trying to run back that 94 crime bill, but with good cops.
Joe Biden's trying to like destroy his own election. I don't know what he's doing recently. Everything he says recently has been
is not well.
Crashing and burning.
I love
he is not well.
If you lose to a nigga who fucked up a pandemic, you are worse than you.
Hey, the funny shit about it is there's a scholar, Alan, whatever the fuck his name is. He's actually a highly respected scholar. He always predicts who's gonna win the election with his little fucking formula, and he predicted rightly that Trump would win in 2016, and he actually predicts a Biden victory. And even I've said, like, I actually do think Biden is going to win this election. Unfortunately, looking at the spread,
he's just not going to survive.
Looking at the spread, he's actually going to win a few states that Hillary lost. I'm actually also in before the article gets dropped on Vox that says Joe Biden won. Mediocre white man won while Hillary Clinton lost while being 10 times more experienced sexism. In before that article drops,
August 6, 2020. Yeah,
I know. Just remember that I said that article will be written, and it will. And it's actually not a. It's probably true, but it's actually true in this case. There is actually probably a little bit of sexism why Joe Biden can do shit that Hillary Clinton can't. Because I actually do believe that if Hillary Clinton,
but you know what it'll be turned into is just intellectual dishonesty. It won't turn into the fact that over 50% of white people, that includes white women, actually voted for Trump.
I was gonna say it's gonna be like the reason that Biden won.
Yeah, it'll be like 13% of you know what they do. 13%.
Yo, I'll never understand how black men, women, or black people as a collective can be truly blamed for any electoral outcome when there is a majority group you can blame every single time.
Every single time. And you're saying how it's always on black folks. Joseph Freeman said Biden and Kamala are secretly in album mode. I don't doubt it.
Not only are we minority, but we're getting like our voting rights are like systemically disenfranchised consistently. Like many people are felons; they cannot vote. They can never vote again because of their charges.
We're
a minority.
They're just lazy,
and we're a minority.
Check the private chat.
Hold on, my cat just went in my closet. Hold on, this motherfucker.
Not the closet.
Hey, you better get the cat out. Yeah, get the cat out quick because he'll pee in the closet.
Not the brunch boots.
Cat will.
He coming for Jamel's Chelsea boots.
Oh no!
Wow.
I'm gonna have to throw them shits out. Damn.
Don't scratch the
He got
flavor
out.
of my
I had to
brunch
give him the
food.
death stare. He knows what's good.
Was he chewing on your brunch boots?
Nah, my boots are actually out, and he actually runs over them all the time. But he doesn't want to chew on them because he knows my body. He knows what I'm about. He knows what I'm about.
No, I don't like this.
Cat knows. He knows. He knows.
Ali was
Hey,
here.
I'm gonna get a teardrop from my eye for every cat that I. No, let me stop.
No.
And on that note,
good.
Jamel needs to leave the show.
Yeah.
So
Peter-
Oh,
Yeah,
Peter is about to dissect this nigga.
yeah. Peter's gonna have me. I'm gonna be on an ad in the
No,
middle of
they'll
Times
literally-
Square.
They'll shut down the show, y'all.
I'm about to
Yeah.
roll through.
I would never harm any of my own pets. Look at him trying to go in the closet now, and he can't.
like that caveat of my own
I
pets.
was
Of my
gonna
own.
say, his own pets. He got smoke for all other animals, but Jamel
Hey,
won't harm his own pets.
Catch me in the lower Congo near you.
But yeah, Jamel gotta go dissertate, and Rennie gotta go parent, so they're gonna slide out. Jamel, tell them your Twitter so they can get your FBI stats.
My Twitter is at Jamel the Creator. So I actually put it right here. So if you follow my Twitter, just shoot me a DM. Follow me. I'll follow you back most of the time. Honestly, if I don't follow you and you want me to follow me back, shoot me a message. I'll do that. I just don't do it most often. But yeah. Thanks for having us, guys. This has been a really dope discussion with a bunch of dope people. None of them are doper than me, but they all are dope. And
Wow.
Ooh, the
I love that.
Y'all been friends with this man for
especially
so
the
long.
black women on this panel.
Bye, Jamel. How do I kick Jamel off this?
Is there a kick function?
I think we have to
Yeah.
hold a vote. Yeah, we can hold a vote on that one. Who should we rate into, by the way? I see that. Let's see. Kamazot's A4 Andres. You want to drop everybody off an A4 Andres channel?
Sounds good to me.
Let's do it.
All right.
What's today? Wednesday? Thursday?
Make sure y'all go
Okay.
read our articles on the resistance.
Wait, so hold on. Before we go, someone is slandering my food takes
I'm gonna beat this
on here in
You
the
had
comments.
The worst food.
No.
take.
What are your
I'm gonna repeat
the
this.
The worst
Ga-
food take belong to Randy.
I'm gonna repeat this. Galatians 4:16. At first, they rejected his message.
Bye.
They rejected his message. They hated Jamel
He's
because he
late.
spoke the
Is it
truth.
Galatians?
Galatians 4:16.
Jamel is ready to have the worst food takes known to man.
because I
anyways,
like
follow-
peppers and mushrooms.
Follow the Resistance Noir page on
You
Twitter.
know.
Follow the Drop Squad podcast. Check out the Drop Squad podcast on Spotify. Go to our website, read our writings, because we got dope shit to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, everybody. And we're gonna go ahead and rate into A4 Andres channel before anybody says anything else that's cancellation worthy on here.
Or
And,
Jamel doing
One
more
more pleasant
food takes.
reminder to not disseminate lynching videos.
Abolish pop music. That's
That
my
was-
most hot
Yeah,
take.
don't disseminate the
Um,
goddamn.
I'm gonna uplift what Kay said. Don't disseminate lynching videos. Murder porn is not necessary for any movement work. Don't meme Breonna Taylor. And yeah.
If you see someone doing that,
anybody
shit
that
in
doesn't
public,
like
like,
arugula.
Now I'm
Wait,
crying at Pence calling Justice Roberts a disappointment to conservatives. He said, "You a bitch."
God.
hold
Nah,
on.
that,
So
he basically called him a coon in nicer words, like a conservative coon.
I just can't believe Joe Biden was out here saying like, "Oh, yo, you what did he say to that black guy?"
Are we rating? What's happening?
Yeah, let's
Let's
do this.
go.
Yeah, 'cause we're still
I'm
going.
trying.
Alright,
Hold up, I'm trying to, but it looks like StreamYard is not cooperating. We'll try this one more
Here,
time directly
hold
from
on.
Twitch.
I can do this. I'll do it.
It's taking its sweet time. It's like slow as hell. It's kind of funny.
Just do it in the
Fails.
chat. Q. Just forward
Is
slash.
this
I-
is this
I'm
a
doing
great
it right
time
now.
for a Verizon Fios commercial, or should I?
Oh my god! All right, good night, everybody.
Right. Like, don't even worry about the rating.
Alright.
Just leave.
Alright,
Chanel
alright,
starts doing his capitalist bullshit.
All right,
You
fuck,
a-
fuck K-pop Twitter. I'm out.
I can't stand you.
This man.
All right, we here.